Hey, welcome to day one of the Seattle Design Festival virtual main stage. My name is Adrian,
And I'm Tyler.
and we'll be your hosts today for today's virtual show. We are coming to you live from Pratt Fine Arts, which is coinciding with today's design mixer going on behind us, around us. Yeah,
I gotta say, it's a pretty cool venue. There's a lot of fun tools in here, and this giant table I'm a little envious about. I wish I had that in my garage for some woodworking. So it's a pretty cool space. If you can make it, it's going until 7:30 tonight at Pratt Fine Arts.
yes, it's a good time, a lot of good energy, and hopefully it picks up here in a bit. But yeah, Tyler, why don't you give us the rundown on what the virtual main stage is?
Yes, we should probably start with that. Virtual Main Stage, we started it last year for the festival, and it was intended to kind of reach a larger audience. You know, we were coming out of the pandemic, and everything was virtual. We started to do some more in-person events, but realized that some things really ought to be virtual so we can reach more people and make it more accessible. So that's what we're doing for the next 3 days. We have today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. So tune in each day. We have different material we're going to cover. And we're exploring, of course, the main theme of the festival this year, which is curiosity. So if you're curious, come on and tune in.
Yes. Nicely said. All right, well, first up for today's show, we're going to take an inside look at what happened this past weekend at Lake Union Park.
Yeah, the block party was, I think, a huge success. We had a lot of people come out there, a lot of installations. I think we had close to 40 installations, over 30 pop-ups. So we had a lot of great participation. A lot of people came out to see the festival. And Adrian, you went and interviewed quite a few people there. So.
Oh, yes.
I think that will be really exciting for others to see. If you couldn't make it out to the block party, you're going to get a little piece of it right now.
Hey, we're here at the Seattle Design Festival block party in South Lake Union Park, where there is over 60 installations and pop-up experiences to interact with. Let's go check them out. We're here at this installation, and it's called On a Roll, and we're here with
Jasmine Martinez. Hi.
We're here with Jasmine.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about this installation?
So this is a collaboration between an architecture firm and an engineering firm. We originally met doing ACE mentorship, which mentors high school students to be a part of the architecture, construction, or engineering field. And from there, we just kept wanting to work with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And this whole festival is about bringing communities together and just seeing how they could design, because it's not just architects that should be designing, it's everybody that should be designing. So a lot of the inspiration that came from this is in the field we deliver prints to people who are actually going to construct this, and also in school we print a lot. So after that gets printed, it's kind of like what happens to the rolls.
Right.
And so this was an opportunity to sort of give the rolls a time on the stage, let them shine. So this is a sculptural take on rolls.
Okay.
And as you can see, we're on a roll.
Hey, I like that.
We decided to put some colored elements into it and just let the sun dance around that and cast shadows as they will. And it's been a joy to watch the community interact with it. We've seen dogs on it. We've seen children on this. And yeah, we invite you to walk around through it and kind of see how you can see the lake through.
Yeah, let's go on a little walk around.
There's different colors, just like any movie you'd see. You see like a blue filter or an orange
Oh,
filter
yeah, I
to
like
change
that.
the mood. This sort of just allows you to see things through different perspectives.
Mhm.
You get this private element, but also an open element, depending on who's on the other side. And yeah, we just had a lot of fun.
You mentioned the kids kind of coming up. Have you seen them interact with it in different ways that adults didn't?
This is true. Yes, a lot of them have taken to punching the colors out, which
Oh.
was fun, and that's a part of the design. It's always changing. This design had changed. We had envisioned it in another orientation, but then reality hits, and you just sort of reblock, and you kind of just roll with the punches. And I like how it came out. It's sort of this abstract living room. It's like this is your couch, and this wall, and this kind of becomes the TV with the different color tubes.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. I can see it.
Yeah, so I kind of like this little room we've created. Really lucked out with having the water view, so not mad at that.
Yeah, that seems intentional on your guys' placement, right? To kind of have this view.
To frame that view, yeah, and see it from a different lens. So I just really like the fact that everybody in this festival had the same sort of task, and the different ways people interpret it I think is incredible. So
Yeah.
this is our interpretation, and thanks for stopping by to check it out.
Yeah, thank you for the rundown. We appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, we're here with Claire with the Seattle Design Nerds. Claire, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good. So, what is the name of this installation, and what can you tell us about it?
The installation is called Icebreaker, and the whole goal of it is to walk people through to understand their social personality in hopes of breaking the Seattle freeze. I was the artist for this installation, so I'd love to walk you through the concept and how it all works together. So first, you're meted with the start board, and you're asked to take a tracking card, and with each card there are these little spots for you to fill in a color, and you basically are asked questions that pertain to your social personality, and you answer truthfully. You go through each 16 boards and you color in the corresponding answer with what matches your personality. So then once you get to the end of the mural, you take a look at your tracking card, and whichever's colors most, that indicates your social personality. And so then you take one of the tokens that represents you, and the whole goal is once you better understand your social personality, then you can hopefully meet others like you or try to meet people unlike you to make more friends in the city and break through the freeze.
We're here looking at this really, really cool installation. What can you tell me about this? And first of all, like, what is the name of it too?
Well, it's called Cubular Tubular.
Okay.
So we started with the theme of curiosity, and the idea was for it to be very interactive and to pull people in, and it kind of evolved as we worked on it. It was really a fun collaboration within the office, so it was kind of really melded ideas.
Oh, yeah.
And so in the end we came to this one, which was something that people could move through, and curiosity was this, in the core there was this mysterious element, so it evolved into this colorful string of spindles, and they have bells on the inside, so there's like Japanese cowbell.
Hey, we're here at the Seattle.
So far.
It looks back and you see the Space Needle upside down through the portal.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Really rewarding just to see all the people interacting with it.
Oh, of course, right? That's the best part. All right, we're going in. Wow, this is really cool. what does like the second life of this look like? Like where does that go? How do you go about that?
Yeah, we've had a lot of discussion. One of the first ideas was that it would be biodegradable. We didn't want to use plastics, and we didn't want to, so it's all wood apart from the mirrors in the periscopes. And then, so we've talked about what to do with it afterwards. So our office is in Pioneer Square, so I think we'll set it up for one of the first Thursdays in the lobby.
Oh, sweet.
And then further on, we talk about having an office competition to design I think we can design a sculpture that hangs from the ceiling, reuse the slats and just reinterpret it as another art object.
I love that. I mean, that's so cool, right? Just keep it going, the evolution of design. It expands and evolves.
Yeah.
Sweet. All right, well, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thanks. Hope you enjoy the rest of the festival.
Thank you.
This is Giant Kerplunk from Freiheit Architecture, and I'm Ricky. We wanted something that was really interactive. People could, touch, feel, and kind of, be curious of how to kind of interact with it. The smaller board game version is kind of our, inspiration, and it has some rules to it, as we were talking about. And with this, we kind of just telling people, kind of play with it how you would want to.
Right.
And we have a lot of kids stopping by for 20 minutes and saying, "Mom, I just want to sit here and play with this." We've had a bunch of people actually take photos of the board game box because they've never seen the game, and now they're going to order it on Amazon. And so it's just been really fun to see how people have interacted with it, and just it's been a load of fun so far. The whole event, really good time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you mind giving us like a little demonstration of
how
someone would go about it?
So how someone would go, you'd kind of pick a colored pole and you pull them out, and then the balls start to fall. And what we've seen a lot with the kids is that they want to kind of have the balls fall, but maybe create their own, wall or level where it'll catch the next ones. And so we see a lot of kind of movement of the poles and people just kind of interacting how they see fit. We've had a few Jedis, but luckily nobody's gotten hit yet. But yeah, as you can see, it's just been a fun time, all day so far.
All right, we're here at this pretty cool looking installation. What is your name?
My name is Yasser Al-Tamimi.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
What can you tell me about this installation?
Well, our installation is what is in your lung. So what is in your lung is a human lung that is the size of a blue whale lung. So you get the experience to go through the lung and interact with all the parts of the lung. It's a unique experience from the perspective that we have a lung, we breathe, and you get the idea and the way to go through it and see everything about it. And we have the installation interactive by incorporating education into it for adults and for kids. So we have jigsaw puzzles for kids they can interact with and play and learn something about the installation, and they can ask questions. We have about education about the installation. We educate the people about the kind of illnesses that can happen to the lungs and how they can prevent them and what kind of triggers them.
Can you tell me about the design process of how this was made?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have designed this and we have custom made it, and we have incorporated the all information needed, and we built around it jigsaw puzzles that incorporate with the design, and you can, when you play with them and you solve them, you can find a clues on the design as well on the installation.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks. All right, we're here at this installation called Breaking the Pattern. What is your name?
Sierra.
Sierra. What can you tell me about this installation?
Sure. So this is the National Organization of Minority Architects. And so this installation, Breaking the Pattern, we were essentially trying to find ways to showcase BIPOC community landmarks within the city. And so on either side of the exhibition, we have these pixelated murals that are showcasing two distinct landmarks. One that is, I don't know if I can move around here.
Yeah, you can
Sure.
come in.
One that is showcasing on this side a landmark just outside of Pioneer Square. I don't know if you could guess it just from standing a little bit further away.
Yeah.
It's near the stadiums. Not quite?
I can't see it.
No worries. So this is the International District Chinatown Gate.
Okay.
So you
Okay.
can kind of see that. And then on the opposite side, we also have a landmark in the Central District. That's the Liberty Bank building, which is the first black-owned bank in Seattle. And so in the inside, we have people kind of working with the installation to where they're typing on index cards what they love about the culture in Seattle, and we're suspending them in the inside for people to read and kind of immerse themselves with it. Yeah.
Have you seen people who are younger, like kids, versus adults, experience this in different ways?
Yeah, the one thing that we didn't quite think ahead of time was kids coming up and rotating the cubes often, which is really, really immersive. And so we would have probably painted all four sides thinking how people would want to touch the installation more.
Right.
But yeah, no, I think there's definitely a kind of a yearning for people wanting to kind of be more actively touching it and just engaging with the installation, which is really cool. But a lot of people just kind of come inside, which is really nice, because initially we were going to do just one panel, but we wanted it to be immersive, so instead we decided to go with the canopy effect, and it's really nice to see that people kind of engage with wanting to be like housed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do like that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure things like that happen all the time, right? Where like you have one idea in mind, and it evolves into something else that you weren't expecting with these pivots and challenges and whatnot.
Exactly.
But so one interesting thing too is because like we see these installations that are out here, and sure they're here for like a day or 2 days. But I'm interested in knowing like what the second life is like with this, like what happens after this festival, you know?
So we're still trying to finalize what we want to do with it afterwards, but our initial thought is that we want to be able to donate it to a BIPOC space within the city. So we plan to reach out to the African American Museum to see if they want to house it there or donate it to some other minority organization that could utilize it better. So that way it kind of has a continued life instead of just like completely stripping it.
Yeah. Wow, I love that.
Thank you.
Sort of a connection happening, right?
Yeah.
Hey, we're here with Ray and Sydney. Ray, what can you tell me about this installation that we have here?
Yeah, our intention is like to have more people connected with each other, because we're in a collective right now. We're the XRs collective. We're a bunch of like undergrads who are minoring the XRs, and we want to try to have like to spread that kind of feeling, like collaborate with each other, to have different majors, people working together to create something interesting and great.
We're UW undergrads, and we are minoring in DX Arts, which stands for Digital Arts and Experimental Media. And that kind of encapsulates the intersectionality between art and like more STEM fields. He majors computer science, I'm in design. We kind of merged that together with this. How does it work? All right, I'm gonna pass that to you.
Yeah. Basically, it's like two parts. One part is like the interaction part. There are two like stainless steel spheres, so they're conductive, and when people. Can you like hold the mic? Yeah. When people like hold balls and hold hands together, there's a like close the circuit. So it activates the blower, and the blower just blows the inflatable.
Wow, I love that.
Thank you.
Sort of a connection happening, right?
Yeah, that's the idea, like to have people connected with each other and they have a sense of collaboratively achieving something.
Yeah, it really is the feeling of achievement. You see it happen right in front of you and you're like, I did that.
Starting with like holding hands, like this kind of gesture, and one solution could be just like people like have closed circuits. So we did some research about like how people have to form a closed circuit and don't let people get shocked.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and we came to this kind of solution like to use Arduino as a microcontroller to receive the signals of like a closed circuit, and Arduino like activates the relay, and relay controls the blower.
From the design perspective, our original intent was to have the foundation be a lot smaller than it is right now, maybe like a third of the height, because what we wanted was a small foundation but like these huge pillars, but that didn't end up working because with the airflow it kind of like messes things up. Maybe if the air like came from down up it would have been better, but in the end we had to cut off some of the pillars. It's a lot shorter than the original intent, and then the foundation ended up being huge. it just like inflated to the size, an unimaginable size. But the only thing that stayed constant during this project was that this circuit was always working. So I always thanking Ray for that, because never once did we test it and it like didn't work. It always worked every single time. So that was always fun, knowing that the main interaction part always worked. But this part was a real headache for us. But it happened. It hasn't broken on us yet. So yay.
We're back again at South Lake Union Park for day 2 of the block party, where we'll see new pop-up experiences and new faces. Let's go check it out. Hey, we're here at this installation called Give and Take. A lot of cool colors going on here. What is your name?
Haley.
Haley.
Yes.
What can you tell me about this installation?
Yeah, so this is Give and Take, like he just said. It's a combination of the idea of a cabinet of curiosities. So each one of these boxes, it holds its own curiosity, and that's been developed by a bunch of people with the firm. We gave them to each person, and they kind of ran with it of what they thought was most curious at the time. Some of the boxes you can actually grab and take things and keep them as your memento for the festival, and then some of these other ones are kind of just fun facts that people might have not thought of before. But it's a really good partnership with like DLR Group and then also PCL. Yeah.
Very nice, very nice.
Yeah.
And have you seen kids interact with it differently than adults?
Yes, kids like to grab things.
Of course.
And so they were really enjoying like grabbing around. Some of the boxes are a little fragile, so they've kind of like manhandled them a little bit, but that's okay. And then they really love this like little chandelier. They've been grabbing and pulling and like playing with it and watching it spin. So it's been really, really cool. It's like a jungle gym. A bunch of kids love jumping over this bench and climbing. We've tried to prevent actually getting up on the walls, but it's been really good. And then adults have been enjoying it as well, just kind of looking around and looking at the
Very cool, yeah. I mean, from a distance, the color, it just grabs you and attracts you.
Yeah, we did a wooden installation last year, and that was really, really fun. It was really interactive, and this year we're like, okay, well, we did wood, let's do some color. Like, it can still be a wood base, but it's really nice to have like a vibrant beacon in like the sea of all the other installations. So,
oh yeah, for sure. It's so attracting.
Exactly.
Yeah, so last question.
Yeah.
From the very start, you guys probably had an idea, a rough idea what this might turn out to be.
Right.
Along the way, was there any pivots, challenges that might have like altered the way it came out?
Yeah. A pivot / challenge or constraint is that we wanted to reuse the structure that we had last year.
Oh, perfect.
And so this is all repurposed from our last year's installation, and we've just like finagled it. But at first it was like really rectilinear. Our last one was like a rectangle, and we're like, how can we make it funky? How can we make it cool and interesting to look at? And so it took a lot of like cutting bits and pieces to like form these shapes.
Right.
And we even have like moments where they move, and you could move and open things. I would say that was our biggest challenge, is using what we had and then trying to create something out of that. So it's a smaller footprint this year, but again, you kind of get like the fun color and fun shapes of the thing. But overall, the pivot was good.
Wow, that's really cool to hear.
Yeah.
Just kind of reusing what you made in the past.
Exactly.
Giving it
We're
new
trying to
life.
reduce waste as much as possible, because like doing this every year, you always do like produce a certain amount of like waste coming out of the installation. So as much as we can reuse every year, it's always a success, I guess.
For sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Sweet. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're in here in this pretty immersive installation that we would love to hear more about. So, what can you tell me more about this installation?
Well, this is the Unfold with Perkinsville and GLY, and what we are trying to reflect here is the heat map of Seattle. So, the way you move through the map, you actually see how the heat is increasing within the city center.
I see.
And as you move out, you feel it more relaxed, and that's the cooler area of the city. So if you see the temperature is being reflected through the length of the fabric, the lower it is, the higher the temperature is. So the lowest points you are seeing in Pavilion is actually the Seattle downtown area.
Okay.
And as we move out, we are having the cooler area. So right now, if you see up, we are in the center of the Lake Washington right now.
I see.
And as you move out, you actually see the different lengths, and people are actually interacting with it. They are actually locating themselves in the map, which is the success point of the pavilion, I'd say, and they are able to relate to it. So I'd say yes, it's the dynamic nature of this pavilion which actually is bringing out the dynamic perceiveness of the people about it. See?
What can you tell me about this installation here?
So this multi-sensory installation is called Inside O Scope. So we were inspired by the kaleidoscope in the beginning. Then we decided to bring the splendid images from the inside to the outside. Then we used the dichroic vinyl film, reflective metallic panels, and wearing sounds together to create a mesmerizing world where people can explore, interact, and uncover new dimensions of curiosity. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, let's go take a look at it.
Our theme is curiosity. We're thinking to have this creating your own neighborhood with like filling in 25 residential yellow boxes, which means 1 unit housing, and 3 retail restaurants for the orange box, and 1 public amenity buildings. So we have 1 already white paved roads. That means a designated roads, or it can be river, as some people are thinking about. So the goal is to put all the housing inside this area, and you cannot exceed 3 story. So if you go horizontally, this is 1 story. If you go vertically, this is 2 story. So you cannot go over 3 story. And so we have a lot of people aiming on different goals, such as the green coverage or the housing varieties. So it's based on like we calculate some of the different types of housing they have created. And this is how it went so far, which is pretty nice. There's a lot of things going on. And a lot of people also create different types of housing, like pyramids. We also see 1 pyramid. And another person who's like back here before, they create a bridge. So we see a lot of creativity happens around here. Thank you. Nice to see you though.
Underwater's, a space we created for visitors to really reinterpret or take a new look at as water that we have as a resource around us. Water plays such an important role in the Pacific Northwest, in this region. It's all around us. And so I think our pavilion invites you to come by, slow down, appreciate the natural effect of water, light, and shadow, but also hearing the water right next to you of Lake Union. It's a place for you to slow down, contemplate, and reconsider your relationship to water. So I'm Brian Havener. I'm an architect at Olson Kundig, and we had a team of 4 designers from our office, and we also collaborated with Dowbuilt, a contractor that we work with a lot, Nateo, a lighting designer that we work with a lot, who helped us out with the lighting effect, as well as PCS Structural Engineering. So we had a really robust team, and that's how we pulled something like this off. That was super helpful. We definitely had to make some pivots along the way, and take the punches as they came. We would have loved to use natural sunlight and the actual lake water to make this effect happen, but our siding puts the lake to the north, and that became really, really challenging. We tried everything from convex parking garage mirrors to reflect sunlight, to submergible lights, to blast light through the surface of the water, but ultimately we had to create the pools of water that you see on land. But the really cool thing about that is that doing it that way invites the public to engage more with the exhibit, because they can actually put their hand in the pools of water and affect the pattern that's filling the ceiling above them. It's funny, I think kids might just have maybe a finer focus on thing, or that maybe it's more curiosity, being the theme of the festival. I saw a lot of adults walk by the other morning, and they would look at the pool of water, kind of look down on it, run their hand through it to create some ripples, but they never looked up. They just kept walking. They would look down, mess with it, and keep walking. And you'd think, oh, just stop, and let your curiosity, allow you to look around and look up. But the kids got that right away.
Wow, that's awesome. Sweet. Well, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
All right. And that's a wrap for the block party. Back to you. All right, and we're back. How was about that? Such a good weekend out there, full of exciting experiences. It was, for me personally, maybe you can speak about this after me, but when I was out there, it was a good time to be able to talk to the people who had an actual hand in the process of creating those installations and pop-up experiences. We had that personal connection to ask them questions to see, what it was like going through it, And I thought overall it was a pretty good time being out there. It was a good year.
Yeah, I felt like compared to last year, it seemed like the installations were bigger. There was more creative use of materials, a lot of varied designs, which is one thing I really like about the block party. That we generally have a theme every year, and of course this year was curiosity. But everyone has a different take on curiosity. Everyone comes up with some other design solution to address curiosity. Of course, everybody's curious about different things, so it makes sense. But that's what I really find interesting about the festival is you get a lot of creative ideas in a small, a pretty big space. But and it seemed like it was well attended. So if you missed it this year, hopefully the recap help you understand what happened this year, and definitely come out next year for the block party in August.
Yes, for sure.
So I think next we have Future Arts with in collaboration with Cornish College. They have a presentation called The Light We Seek, and it's about a mural that they are going to have a display at Cornish on September 15th. And it's a really fascinating process that they went through. They used all sorts of experimental technologies and explored all these different things of motion capture, augmented reality, biomimicry. It's a really interesting process that they went through. So I hope you enjoy.
Hi everyone. We'll do a quick intro to our projects and everyone on screen. We are Future Arts, and we're here to talk about our interactive public mural installation called Cut, Crush, Decay that was made in partnership with Cornish College of the Arts, specifically their newly launching Cornish Plus program. And we're super stoked to talk a little bit more about our process and have a discussion with our team about the project. And it will be opening in September. Definitely check it out. There will be public tours. There will be some programming that everyone can attend, and you can also check it out at any time on your own. So we'll do quick intros of everyone on screen. I'm Yulia Brooke, pronouns she, they. I'm the founder and creative director of Future Arts. And Future Arts is a local arts and technology nonprofit that's driven by nature processes, and we're women non-binary led and enjoy interdisciplinary collaborations like these. So I'll throw it over to Anna.
Hi everyone, Anna Chosky, pronouns she, her. I am a co-founder and the creative technology design director at Future Arts, and I'll throw it over to Lara.
Hello, everybody. I'm Lara, one of the co-founders of Future Arts with these lovely humans. I go by she, they, and my background is restaurateur, choreography, design, events, some interior spaces, and generally just finding fun excuses to bring people together. And Future Arts is a really wonderful platform to get really arty and nerdy with it and work with lots of amazing creative people to always learn from. And I'll pass it to Sabine.
Hi, I'm Sabine Timalsena, pronouns he, him. I'm a computational artist and a creative technologist. I like to play with cutting edge technologies, and especially from an angle of exploring geometry, mathematics, and naturally inspired systems. And I'm collaborating with Future Arts in this project to realize a digital layer and create a unique experience.
Awesome, awesome. We also have a lot of other folks involved in this project. I would say the four of us have probably had the most conversations throughout the process since we're interweaving, but we've been really impressed and excited about how many different students, faculty, artists such as Sabine, tech sector folks are coming together to create this. Cornish has been really wonderful in providing us support with the fabrication as well, and other local maker spaces, and all kinds of exciting discussions we've had. We started this collaboration in really December, even November. So it's been quite a long time. I think we're all in disbelief that it's going to be up on the walls shortly after this airs. So we're deep in the production phase right now, and it's really getting juicy and exciting. So I guess I'll ask some questions, and we can kind of have an organic discussion and let it flow, kind of like the project flowed. The project was really leaning into something called emergent strategy, which is a term, a book actually by Adrienne Marie Brown. She's wonderful, and their way of discussing how nature affects different processes of collaboration and biomimicry, and ways that we should turn to nature when we're thinking about the future of how different disciplines are working together. And we believe at Future Arts that that really is the future of work and the future of how we all live. So I guess the question to everyone is, what is emergent strategy to you, and how has it reflected the way we've been working together? And then we can kind of start from the beginning and just talk about the project and how it emerged. But let's start from emergent strategy.
That's a good place to start for sure. I'll break the ice. I'm like, who goes first? Yeah, I think it's been really interesting coming up with a nugget or a seedling that we can water and let grow. And at the same time, you have sort of a shared vision, and there's some tension between these starting places and knowing that there's a shared goal, a shared vision, and allowing room in between those two spaces to have its own life and let things unravel and unfold in a natural way according to the collaborators and the people influencing the process, and letting things emerge as they come, as opposed to holding on too tight to what you think something should be. I think sometimes constraints in the art world are always great, but I think sometimes in life, in business, in art, in our relationships, we might hold on to things too tight and not really give things room to grow in ways that they need and be influenced in ways that they need. So I think we're leaning into that in this process, giving it's like, well, I think we might have lost count easily more than 10 folks at this point, a dozen plus, influencing the life of this piece and just allowing all those voices to be heard and influence the piece. Really exciting.
I see it as kind of, as always with collaborations, but especially this one, I think of course, interconnected networks and kind of like you were saying, how each collaborating person kind of brings their network and community, and when we intertwine and weave together these different people and stories and backgrounds and experiences. And so the fact that we've involved, industry, creative technology, students, nonprofit worlds, it's really exciting to see this web of mycelium grow into like this bigger organism than we could have ever expected, and we didn't know the outcome, and that was the exciting part. It was emergent.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting way of approaching art projects, like emergent strategy, right? What we're doing as collaborators and what we've the way we approach this project, it's steering itself like based on various tendencies, right? And then we all have our own influences on how the project proceeds and what we think it'll look like, and that's very similar to emergence in nature, I guess, because it's there are forces that you control, there are forces that you do not control, there are various tendencies that are mixed together, and then you kind of let the project steer itself. And then I think we've kind of taken a similar approach, and it's really exciting to see this project come to life through a collaboration of many different ideas, and they're all like they all have distinct influences in terms of like how we're building it, what we're building it with, and how does it look like, how does it behave, and I find that really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like we did a interesting job allowing a lot of push and pull and flexibility, yet maintaining a clear structure of how, we had cadences of meeting, we had still a very clear phase structure. I think we do that a lot as an org, is there's phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. We might not know exactly what falls in those phases, but it is a mind shift, now we're in production phase, so everyone's a little bit like, okay, things are happening. What was it like, I guess, Sabine, when we first approached you and pulled you in to the mycelium that we're building? And at the beginning, what was the beginning like? We can kind of start from there and go through these phases together and reflect on them.
Right. So my practice is mostly around taking any source of data, right? It could be a source of randomness, a source of chaos, or whatever source it is. So in this case, we're capturing data using multiple methods, right? So that's when we like got started. We were doing captures using different sensors, like using AI technology to do motion capture. And then so with that, we had like a lot of data. And the question really was like, we can do like an infinite number of things with this data, and what exactly are we going to do with it, right? So I think that's the we were exploring answers to that question like when we first started collaborating here. So we have these multiple gigabytes of captures, and how do we take this stream of like numbers, and then how do we convert it, how do we reshape it, transform it, so that it can be applicable in different contexts, right? So it's not so that it can be applicable both for digital and physical applications. And I think I remember we spent a lot of time like trying out various approaches, and then prototyping and throwing away ideas, coming up with new ideas. And I think that was a really good exercise in being really like familiar with the data and understanding the data that we captured at the lowest level of detail, and then using properties, extracting interesting facets of that captured data, and then expressing it with with new kinds of abstractions.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, we've been through so many different layers and processes. I wanted to actually go a little bit back and explain what was the data and everything. I don't know if Lara, you wanted to kind of talk about what is this and who's the players and where's this data coming from and a little more about
Yeah, kind of high level the project description in total. Yeah. Well, we knew we had a surface area the size of a whale to cover, and we knew it was going to be public. And we knew that we had the sort of sign on with Kevin, who leads the art and sculpture department, and Charlotte, who's in the dance department, via Kel's introduction, who's running and launching the Cornish Plus program. She sort of ushered in this introduction, and we met in front of the mural and started chatting. And even though we didn't know exactly what we were going to do, everybody was into it. So we got to work with sculpture students, and we got to inspire the sculpture students to collaborate with the dance and choreography students. And the way they chose to set up their relationship was that the sculpture students would choose an object to make a mold for and ideate some sort of installation space. And then the choreography students would create a solo inspired by that object. We Future Arts definitely created and presented to the students some biomimicry concepts to help inspire. We were really inspired with heliotropism and mycelium and using those processes for a creative process, but wanted to introduce those to the students as well. Very interestingly, we ended up with scissors, crushed cans, and meat that the sculpture students chose, and the choreography riffing off of that. We motion captured the choreography, and it was really fascinating to see how the students really did see the iterations of those things come through on the movement. And then we worked with creative technologist and artist Joshua Borsman in his studio to kind of derive various ways to capture the movement and or the sculptures. And we landed on a few different things. We did some polycam scans. We did some Move AI, which is some AI technology, which is essentially video that helped us translate those bodies into 3D digital space. So we had an abundance of information now, and then the students were out of session and we just sort of had these assets. And then at that point, we went into another cycle of ideation and creation with Sabine, and deciding what we want to do with that data and how we want to visualize it. So bringing real life stuff into digital spaces and then kind of mixing it up to figure out how to get it back into a three-dimensional space, which will be the mural. And then we will also have an augmented reality digital layer to integrate with the physical mural. So we've kind of bounced back and forth between various realms along this process.
The other technology we used, I don't know if you mentioned, was Connect for the point clouds. And so we really haven't been using that too much, but that was really an interesting process to look at the various tools that are out there and available.
I suppose there's the motion capture suits. We did have a moment with those.
We did, yes.
Needless to say, not everything you try works.
It worked the first time just fine. And never again.
So I think that when trying to remember when we had our aha moment, and Sabine was sending us. I mean, you were going. You're just getting in there with the data. Maybe if you could pull up some of the twirlies, that would be fun to see how some of those in motion. I think there was, this idea that each body has 35 joints, which is part of the Move AI software that is our partner, our technology partner, and Sabine was manipulating some of these motion trails. So I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about that, but there was a point where you were essentially manipulating time, and there was something that looked very much like this, where we were like, oh my gosh, there's our mural, because it's fitting. I mean, it was fitting the shape, but there's something really, really beautiful about the way that the story unraveled. But maybe if you could talk a little bit more about, these beautiful images that you created.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Laura mentioned, we did so many different kinds of capturing data and trying out different methods of capturing movement, right? So essentially, that's what we're dealing with here, and we're taking a four-dimensional process, right? These performances, these dances, these are four-dimensional processes. They happen in space and in time, and then we captured it using a Kinect. We captured it using Move AI, which gives us the motion capture data, and then we also captured some stills using photogrammetry to capture some of the interesting poses. And I found the Move AI data the most interesting out of all of these because it is easily I can work a lot with this data because I can track like everything that's happening, like um, all of the micro, like minuscule movements of every joint that has been captured, and then play around with it. So this was the one of the first experiments where right you cannot really tell like the shape, but you can see like some human features in this. If you've seen the performance, then you can probably tell like what's going on, but this is like a very highly abstract representation of trying to bring down the four-dimensional shape projected onto 3D, right? So the entire performance captured into one abstract sculpture. And so in doing this, I tried different approaches of manipulating space and time, right? So essentially, as the dance is progressing, as the performance happens, I change the space around, around the captured data, and I have the option to like do things like speed up and slow down time, or like change the extract like motion parameters like speed, acceleration, etc. from the motion, and use that as elements in constructing this kind of geometry. We can also look at some other um, examples from some of our initial experiments, and I think this one's interesting. Yeah, so this is right. So it's like a real time, like you're kind of like weaving something, and then there are forces at play, like so these strings that the dancer is generating, they have their own qualities and tendencies, which applies forces to them at different points. So you can kind of tell by they're deforming themselves in various ways, and so I guess like we tried a bunch of a lot of that, and then we tried different some other ways of doing the same thing. This one's a much simpler example, right? So we're just like moving, right? It's like a very straightforward, like 4D to 3D transformation, you could say. But yeah, this leads to like a lot of interesting shapes, and really the problem of trying to take like a 2-minute performance and then squeeze all of that information into an abstract sculpture, right? So yeah, these were some of the experiments we did, and so you can kind of see like all of the 3 performances that we captured using Move AI being represented by these abstract 3D sculptures. And yeah, this was extremely, I had a lot of fun, playing with this data. And yeah, and still I think we have only scratched the surface, because there's still so much more that we can do with this.
Yeah, it strikes me how mycelium-y it is, which, you know, stemming from the root of our initial biomimicry assignment we gave ourselves, and how the way we work really represents those mycorrhizal networks. And sorry, and I always mispronounce that word, but it's, the mycelium being intertwined and speaking to each other and protecting each other. And this to me, is very, very reminiscent of a lot of those shapes. And we were really excited to see that, since that was initially what we were striving towards. But yeah, and for essentially the final mural, you'll see on the Ivy on Boren is a building at Cornish, and it's actually on the Lenora side of the building where the mural will be seen. It'll be seen through the end of October. And like we said, there will be an augmented reality part to it that will bring it to life, and you'll see some of these motion trails, and we're still very much in the process of it right now. But I'd love to kind of talk about the physical realm. So after we had this aha moment with these beautiful images that Sabine has been working on, we had to start thinking of the physical and how they're going to be intertwining. And our natural physical partner is Ecovative, and I'll let Anna talk about that part, since she's our mycelium expert.
Yeah, so I guess I didn't really mention my background at the beginning, which is a mixture of a lot of different things, from game industry to UX design to VR extended reality spaces. But more recently, been really excited about bioart and using these natural processes and into substances themselves. And so Ecovative is doing that and created this technology around using mycelium, which is, if you don't know, like the root structure of fungi, right? And so what they do is they have developed a way to grow it really quickly, and really it can become serve different purposes in the ways they use it, from repurposing plastics and styrofoam for packaging to actually creating different surface design. So they use the mycelium as a structure in very different ways. For acoustical dampening, actual building material, it has a fire resistant quality to it, of all things, and so many more applications.
Hadn't thought about the fire resistant. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we might still have a fire show. I mean, this is still evolving. Look, y'all, you're gonna have to come check it out. You might see some stuff. It is still emerging. You might get to plant some mycelium.
Yeah, the fire show would go really well with the sprouting bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you can also see we went through a lot of different natural other ways, natural systems we can incorporate, from paper pulp, which is very sustainable. We at one point wanted to compost this whole thing live at the end after we took it down, because that's a process we don't often talk about, where art goes afterwards, and have seed paper So have it grow, literally plant our giant mural afterwards. I mean, we have a lot of these kinds of conversations. We had 3D printing at the Cornish Makerspace. We were talking about retroreflective materials at some point that were actually, they are sustainable, oddly enough, some of them. And yeah, we did a bunch of sketching. I have our sketches, early on sketches here that we did together at Joshua's studio. Bunch of different ideation that we've gone through. And then Anna, actually, you scanned this in VR, so I think we're in the process of finally getting this thing into VR before hanging it, so we can actually have, I'm currently not in Seattle and I have my VR headset here, so we might do a little work sesh in VR, hopefully. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, in that way we can all be in the same place and jam on what this actually looks like, because as you know, experiencing it in 3D at scale is such a different experience than just manipulating it with pixels, right? So it's been a really interesting process to go from these beautiful organic shapes that Sabine created and extruded into, how do we make this, an installation that has dimension, but also there's a lot of flattening involved. But how do we keep that story of each of the dancers, their process, their movement, and that's another connection I see to mycelium as a metaphor is the dancer's movement extruded is this invisible structure, much like mycelium that holds it together. And yeah, I'm excited to incorporate that into this installation as well. This is one of our very early tests of using this ecovative material. So they've been really helpful with showing us how to best create this and manipulate with it. So giving us a wood backing, for example. It has this like velvety finish that is really hard to describe.
Petable sculpture. Love that.
Very petable.
Anna, you said something that triggered my brain just about our title and how it's inspired by the actions of not only the objects that we've iterated on in so many ways to derive at our finished product, but also cut, crush, decay is the process that we've been utilizing as part of this. So we had these like 3-dimensional digital sculptures, and we literally had to cut and crush them and flatten them to come up with various layers that we could then translate into CAD files so that we can get CNC cuts of large wood panels and acrylic panels to then do sort of a layered topographical flattened but also dimensional sculpture and representation of these dance works that are essentially space and time. Anyway, just fun little layers of all the ways that we've kind of iterated in our process.
I know, Anna, you also have our miniature, so we've been in the makerspace for the past couple of weeks. So I guess this is the big reveal of the mini version of just the physical part. And maybe if Sabine has any other kind of AR, there's that really cool video of the tendrils kind of going across the screen, but we're still working on it, so maybe we won't give you too much about the AR. But yeah, this is but we realized that since we weren't quite ready to see it in VR because it's like a chicken egg at that point, we just started essentially creating all of the layers and different materials and treating it like a puzzle and just seeing what looks good. And that really, really helped us make some decisions, because to really get into the next phase of the project, it's all about decisions, right? And we want to make sure that we are the most informed we can, but also we take a lot of risks, and because we don't know, I mean, this thing is still only 2 feet and the big one's going to be 40 feet. So
Yeah. Oh, no.
I'm sure. Yeah. Ta-da!
So, ta-da! So I wanted to show this one first because this was, one of the first pieces of our process that we really just loved all of these interwoven shapes, and you can see the movement, you can feel it in a way, and this is actually only one dancer, but it was our process of cutting, editing, like, and squishing down in the crush component too, of looking at just how can we display these different layers together. And this was actually only a cross section of that one dancer's movement. And then we had another editorial moment. Let me make sure it's like the right direction. I don't know if you can see this whole thing, but this is the 3 dancers sort of all layered on top of each other. You can see this, maybe it's fun to mention that the starting position, they was actually laying down and very still, and you can see that at the lowest layer, wooden layer here. You can see all of her extremities, just going through time and space. So that's pretty neat to be able to visualize the movement in that way. But Yulia, did you want to talk more about the process of editing? Or
The editing process. Well, this really only happened last week. Well, we don't know what week this is playing in, but or maybe weeks now ago. Time has been interesting, right? But we as we bring folks in, other collaborators, we always love the fresh perspective that they bring, because we're in it. I mean, you know how it is, those who have made art or creative projects that are very layered like this. It's we get lost in it, and we get really into the process, and it all becomes very important. All the little bits and pieces and all the different storylines. It's really hard to let go of your darlings, as they say. So that's the way to do so, and the way to edit ourselves, we have found, is to bring others in, which is part of emergent strategy, part of biomimicry, is to allow that perspective. And we had a really long discussion with a new collaborator, and they just asked us a question about, do you really need all this information? Really? And just being able to really step back and see it from their perspective made it really apparent what's necessary. And then furthermore, Sabine is working on the augmented reality, so we really realized we need to respect the AR. I was like, wow, we're not respecting the AR. We need to give it space. We need to realize that the physical has to intertwine with the digital. It can't just be, we got really into the physical at one point. We were like, oh, we're going to make this and that and 20 million layers, and like mycelium is going to be everywhere. And we were like, yeah, this is going to be amazing. And then at a certain point, we were like, it's not like we forgot about the AR, but that needs to have space, and it needs to have almost a backstory. And then the AR is really what's bringing it to life, and then it can really interplay. And I wonder what it was like to be on your side, Sabine, as we were like, we're bringing all these layers in, and you were so sweet, and you were trying to make it work. But I kept being like, man, when we had that realization of like, we're not respecting the AR, I mean, that must have been kind of, I don't know, a roller coaster to go along with the experiments.
No, I mean, I'm always in like a problem solving mode, I guess. So my reaction would be like, it doesn't bother me, but now what do we do next to like, make it work, right? What are the alternatives? And looking for, that's like my immediate response. Like, instead of like, oh, this doesn't work. No, that's not the correct response. I think it's like, well, how do we make this work, right? So, but yeah, I mean, I think it's great to like mention that we're working under a lot of constraints from physical to digital, and each one of these processes has their own limitations in terms of materials, right? So how big can it be? How detailed can it be? How many layers can we do? And then also, in terms of the digital layer, like how much can your phone handle, right? And we want to like create an experience that is like highly detailed, highly reactive. But then, we also have to consider the limitations of the existing technology. And then, right, and we faced it several times before, for example, with the Connect data, right? So it's like we captured all of this data, but it does not come with any tool to help us process it. And then we ended up like, so right, so we have our own like in-house tool to be able to process that data and to change it, and I think it's like similar for anything that involves technology, right? We cannot really make assumptions about the capabilities of something because everything is going to have like some kind of limitation, and then right, this is the right phase to tackle those challenges and to work around those limitations and see what can be done, what cannot be done. And I like really appreciate that you're taking that into account, like as part of the physical process, because that definitely does like influence like how easy it is to make the digital layer come to life, because it is somewhat dependent on the physical stuff. And I think it's also great when like these two things go like hand in hand. Like they're not like two separate things, but they're two parts of the same thing.
They're very
Very well
connected. They're
said.
interconnected.
Right.
Like not just because of the data, but because of all that thoughtfulness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now the install feels like a canvas and for the AR.
Yeah, I think we're all very excited to actually see what it looks like. That's the best part, is it's going to surprise us. That's my favorite part of working this way. I wanted to maybe share just a few photos from our record sessions and give some space for the amazing students we worked with and the faculty and Cornish, and also thank Kel, who's the AD over there. She's been amazing in supporting this project, and Kevin and Charlotte, and also mad props to KJ, and he's really kind of stepped up, and he's runs the makerspace, but also is an artist and maker and just multi-talented, and he's been a huge asset to this project, and also kind of came up with the title. Once again, we were struggling with the title, and he was the one that said, well, why don't you make it actions? It's an action project. And this is these moments we love, and we felt that moment of like, yeah, that's totally the title. That makes a lot of sense. And other folks, Pinky and Rob and there's just been so many people coming together and offering consults, advice. David from Passable, Tim from Cascade Made. I mean, I'm just naming off who I can remember. Sorry if I'm missing anyone. We'll have a full list on our website of all the books that have touched this project and changed it and merged it. And I wonder if, Laura, you could say a few words about this idea at the table of elements that we want to incorporate into our projects as we make them. And meanwhile, I'll share some photos of the students dancing and the sculptures and such as you talk about the elements.
Yeah, well, I always think it's interesting when you go to see a show and you have your art title and artist and, the general ingredients, if you will, for that art piece. But I think there's just so much more that goes into art, particularly a multi-human and multi-process art piece. So I thought it would be cool to kind of create a visual representation that we can wrap our brains around, and we're more or less all familiar with the periodic table, and we recognize it's the elements and the building blocks of various things. So thought it would be fun if this project and projects going forward for future arts, if we could essentially come up with a periodic table of the building blocks of each of our art projects. And when you think about it, it's not only humans, but it's the tools involved, it's the power, the wattage, the computation, the software, all the tools along the way. I just think it's really fun to kind of create an artifact that could showcase all of that. So we're hoping to do some version of that with our mycelium didactic that will be really trying to showcase what the process of this project was, because the process actually is the art piece itself. And if there's some way to kind of demonstrate that, I just think there's so much more takeaway for anybody coming to the mural to experiencing, knowing that we started this in December and it involved all these humans and stemmed from biomimicry, scissors, cans, and meat. And the sun is really coming into my window. I apologize. I have to move
It's
my camera here.
heliotropism attacking you. There you go.
Yep,
It came
it
out.
Yep.
Yeah, but I think that's a great kind of ending thought, is leaning into things when they might seem problematic or nonsensical, but really leaning into the light of it, leaning into the connection of it. Scissors, cans, and meat. You saw some photos of this was, Day and her beautiful meat dance right here. And I mean, it was incredible. We had the scissors dance with Sophia, and we had Mackenzie and the aluminum cans, and then this was their performance in Cornish, and then we brought them into the studio and recorded their performance. This is Day being recorded, or this is post-recording when we did interviews. There's me getting a little interview. We will have a film, by the way, so there'll be lots of fun content with the students and all of us. But I wanted to show you, this is Mackenzie doing the cans dance, and movie I included 4 different cameras, just iPhone cameras that stitched the movements together that you saw Sabine share using an AI powered mocap program. They've been really awesome. They're London based and they're our official partner as well. So yeah, it's just been also awesome to work with students and hear their thoughts on how technology is going to affect them and how their bodies are going to be in this mural, in this installation. So just a lot of gratitude to them and their emotions, because they're being represented here and they haven't seen the reveal yet. So we're really excited to have all these students see this collaboration. I think this was a huge thing that Cornish Plus was hoping for, is bringing in this sort of interdisciplinary approach to education, and the way that learning is in this world. It's a lot more natural to the way our world works, is bringing a lot of folks in to work together. It just makes the process more strong. So any other remarks or thoughts about that y'all want to say on this reflection of the project?
Right. I had an interesting thought about the nature of technology and its evolution. Right. So we're really combining a lot of disciplines in this project, and we're enabled by technology in unique ways. Like, for example, if you think about AR and VR, these are technologies that are like 50 years old, but they only recently became accessible in the last decade or so, right? It hasn't, before that it was not accessible. And things like motion capture, like, all of these sensors, so they're like, like really old, but they have never really been like this accessible as they are right now. And I think we live in an interesting time or we have access to like so many of these, and we can start trying to incorporate all of these things that have now become accessible due to the improvements in like devices and computation, and that certainly does open the door to establish new kinds of collaborations, or to inject new kinds of processes into your existing workflow.
Really well said. Yeah, accessibility is huge, and we take accessibility seriously. And our tours will actually have some really interesting approaches to accessibility. So definitely check our tours out. By tours, it'll be essentially times when we will be on site to walk folks through the installation and have a little screening. So those that haven't done AR before love them, or have done AR and just want to meet us and learn about the project. We'll have those times on the website, and we hope to see everybody there.
Yeah. Did we say that it'll be up the all of September, October? Yeah.
Yeah. So if you go to our website, futurearts.co, we'll have all the information up on there. You can sign up for a tour. I think we will at this point have a way to sign up for them, and there will be at least one every month. For September, one for October, for the public, and then we're going to have some lunch tours for those folks that are working nearby, because it's walkable to a lot of different tech spaces, and we want to start bringing art to those tech spaces and tech to our art spaces, and just integrate more. And I guess one last thing I wanted to say is this project is a bit of a experiment for us, in the sense that it is a project that specifically shows our process. We have other programming we're working on that will be more reoccurring, but this was really a deep collaboration in a spot where we're a new organization, and Cornish is entering a new phase of their program with Cornish Plus, and it was a really sort of powerful way to not only show how we feel that our organizations work, but be able to work in that way. It was very meta. It was like we tested it on ourselves to create this piece as a representation of how we see the future. So that was really cool. But we do have other programs that are more reoccurring that you can check out on our website. So and get involved and hang out with us and chat. And I don't know, if you have ideas, just come talk to us. We love talking to people. That's something we do. Well, I guess this is it. Thanks for coming out. Lovely to chat with y'all and reflect on our process, and we still got a lot of work to do, so back to work. But yeah, follow us on the Instas, drop us a line. Thank you all, and see you at the mural with your smartphone. Get ready.
All right, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed the last video. I was especially impressed with the motion capture of the dance and how that was modeled through time to create this really interesting 3D form. Again, if you want to check out the ultimate artwork that they're going to produce, it's a mural at Cornish, and it'll be on display September 15th. You want to introduce the next video?
Yes. All right. Next up, we have a presentation by Curious Publishing, where they explore how cultural narratives are amplified through zine and printmaking. Let's check it out.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rebecca Ustrell. I'm with Curious Publishing. Our company is a small press located in Southern California, and we work with artists that have not had the resources to amplify their stories or practices because of barriers that have kept them marginalized over time. Our mission is to support marginalized artists first, especially BIPOC, queer, and women artists. And we're here with my business partner and life partner, Samuel Siner, who has been here since we started just late 2017 into 2018 is when Curious Publishing began. So Sam, let's hear a little about your story and how you got connected.
Absolutely. So I'm Sam, or Samuel. I'm the production assistant for Curious Publishing. A lot of people, the easiest way to explain it is I've been helping since day zero. As far as what I do for a production assistant, it could be anything. In the early days, I drove the car, loaded for the events, bartended at at the bars at the events that we would have. And then it eventually transitioned to being more involved with the production of Curious Magazine. So now I help as a liaison in communications between artists and coordinating submissions and vetting them with Rebecca. And on top of that, also just running the shipping and taking stuff to the post office and also managing our brick and mortar store in Claremont Art and Bodega. So pretty much if there's anything that Rebecca doesn't do, I probably do it.
Yeah, you've been a super tremendous help. So we just a little background. So we ended up getting married, but we didn't meet through Curious Publishing. We used to both work in customer service jobs, and we both are artists, and we're just like, you know what, this is not doing it for us. What can we do to start talking more about our art practices, connecting with our friends, and making something happen here in our corner of SoCal. So if you're not really familiar with the Inland Empire, which is where we're based out of, it's just about 35 to 40 miles in from Los Angeles, where all the Amazon warehouses are. San Bernardino County, the biggest county in the country, lots of blue collar workers, but also a ton.
Very suburban.
Right. It's houses, it's families, people working in different trades. And there's also a huge young population, teen to ages like 45, that are active artists that have been reaching out to other big metropolitan areas to try to get their names out there. And from my personal experience, getting left out of the picture and the imprint of what's culturally happening in California. So naturally, it was this thing that I saw needed to happen. You know, how do we get these artist practices stories out there? And I took it upon myself to create a small press to do that. But I mean, it didn't just kind of happen overnight, of course. I was an illustrator whenever I started Curious Publishing, and had this idea that, okay, if I can't get my artwork into traditional gallery settings, what's the next way where I can get this to be accessible in everyone's hands? And being a fan of the zine community, a new fan of the zine community, I'd gone to some zine fest that colleges put on down here in the Claremont colleges. I was a zine collector and a printed ephemera collector. I thought that it would be cool to make some flyers with my artwork on it, maybe some small volume zines. And I created Curious Publishing as a press to kind of elevate and legitimize my practice and get things to people at a cheaper rate. So it really started as accessibility. Sam was also on a similar path. He was writing music at the time on piano, and I had this thought that maybe I can marry my illustrations with other people in my life's artworks. So Sam actually ended up writing some music. I don't know if you want to talk more about that, Sam, for our first volume of Curious.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Kind of my way of seeing how Curious Publishing came into fruition was also how you used to organize the art walks in Claremont for pretty much all 2016 and 17. And I always remember it's like, oh yeah, this was pretty cool. But honestly, I mean, I knew like you showed me some of the work that obviously that you had or that your friends had. And it was definitely something that was just a little bit too radical and just a little bit too raw just for a public art walk. So I even knew before when there was concrete plans for a magazine that like what we wanted to cover, what we wanted to highlight, show was just the actual like fruits of like living artists, and for all the warts and all as far as just what it means to be an artist here in the Inland Empire. So circling back to the first issue of Curious Publishing and the music that I was making, yeah, the first issue of Curious Magazine was Millennial Pink, and I decided that, you know what, at the time I was really into avant-garde piano music and it's a lot of like modernist stuff, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna make a piece that's inspired by the color, literally millennial pink, and yeah, it's in there. A lot's changed since then as far as what I do musically, but that's like the first time I ever performed an original piece at that release party. It was awesome. It was incredibly validating, and just to see other people's interpretations of the theme and just everything just kind of going together was truly creating a moment. Because obviously, yes, we were creating a magazine which compiled artwork on this specific topic, but when we actually had the release party, everyone got to actually meet each other. I think someone said like it's as if Instagram like came to life and you can actually see all these different artists, and then people are connecting. People are just honestly just gassing each other up and learning about each other's practices and just being, wow, there's all this talent here. It's like, why doesn't this talent gather more often? And soon enough, I think by the night of that first event, people were saying, wow, that was great. When's the next one? So yeah, people were into it from the get-go.
Yeah. So kind of to backtrack a little, I created the name Curious Publishing to self-publish my own zines, which were illustrative works. You know, I had like a zine on unemployment because I wasn't working at the time, a zine called Etowanda because we have the Etowanda Preserve here, and my art practice is just connecting with my environment and then writing about it, and kind of a like indie kind of way, you know, like observations of life. And I didn't want what I was doing to become an echo chamber because I had a lot of art friends and creatives in my network that were also writers, filmographers, musicians. I wanted to see their perspective. You know, I thought of how I wanted to do a zine on unemployment, and then I was like, you know, what if I took something that could be more universally relatable? And at the time in 2018, I think it was the color of year that year or the year before that, they coined it millennial pink, but really it was this shade of pink that was occurring in art, fashion, design at the time. And it turns out it has a kind of rich history called Baker Miller pink, which was this color that was psychologically studied in prisons to actually calm prisoners and make a more serene environment. So if you're really nerding out on that, you can Google Baker Miller pink to learn more about it. But we put out the prompt millennial pink and got in all of these submissions on people's interpretations of what that meant to them. And it was, as you might think, a millennial audience. I'm a millennial, Samuel's a millennial, and it was the most natural place to start connecting with artists around here. That was before we created our mission statement for marginalized voices, but the audience that I was reaching organically was marginalized voices because being a Latina, Jewish, low-income artist that's in the service industry, wanting to share my art practice with others, I became that advocate for my friends that were in that same kind of community as I was, and Samuel was one of the first collaborators that I had. That's how Curious Magazine was first launched, but we've actually since then created a quarterly issue of Curious Magazine that is our magazine that we put out, calls for art on different topics. And this year we are in the last issue of our empathy themed issues of magazine. Our year of empathy started with empathy and resilience. And it's kind of been this thing where every year we put out this call for art, people submit their work, and we publish the work by crowdfunding the printing cost and paying different feature artists to be featured in the magazine. I kind of want to talk a little bit about the other things that we do and why Curious Magazine has laid that foundation for us to actually go above and beyond just sharing our work with each other and really into providing paid opportunities and a bigger platform for marginalized artists. So let's talk about when we got the project from Aaron Longsleeves, a collaborator out of LA. now in the Inland Empire, called Calamity Magazine. So we met Aaron Longsleeves through an open call initially. One of our collaborators, who is named Sherry, put us onto Aaron's work, and he had a similar idea to Curious Magazine. He had a group of his own community of artists that he thought could use a little bit of a boost and community to amplify their stories, and said, I have this idea, I think I want to call it Calamity Magazine, and this is going to highlight Black artists and recording musicians and street artists out of Southern California, LA area, all the way up to the Bay Area, and this is his own personal network. So by this time it was 2020, it was middle of the pandemic, and there was nothing but time for artists to kind of do their big collaborative dreams, even though we couldn't all see each other in person, and the access that way was bad. You know, artists were kind of desperate to connect beyond Instagram and through projects that would leave a bigger imprint and a bigger impact on their communities. So through Aaron's project, it was a similar prompt to Curious Magazine, but even though the prompt was so similar to Curious, the outcome was totally different.
Yeah, no, and the coolest thing about Calamity was kind of it kind of recreated the initial experience for a lot of artists that they had with our first or second issues of the magazine, where it was like here's the interesting thing. I feel like I need a little bit of let me give a little bit of backstory to it. This is the sense that starting in pandemic, as we mentioned, when Curious Publishing and Curious Magazine first started with Millennial Pink, the audience was pretty much just millennials, right? But literally just 2.5, 2 years later, starting in 2020, leading into 2021, we noticed that there was not just a demographic shift, but just a growth too. We had suddenly Gen Z artists coming of age. So I feel like with Calamity Magazine, when it debuted in its larger format and kind of expanded the horizon of like the kind of art that we covered, this is around the time that we even released a couple of cassettes as well too through Curious. It kind of gave people like who are just tuning in for the first time, like that really huge moment of like, wow, this is the possibility, not just with print, but just what an art publishing company can do just to connect a whole scene, or just to inspire all sorts of new work and new creativity. And Aaron's just has brought a lot of cool people and cool energy ever since then too. He even, I think, a couple of months after Calamity, ended up creating a musical project with one of our other friends, and to me, that's just yet another example of just how the community connecting with each other and just finding different styles of artists, just finding ways that how it all fits together, and just how powerful of a momentum that forms. So yeah, Calamity brought a lot of awesome energy and just brought a lot of new blood into the Curious pipeline.
Totally, and it brings up a good point of, why we thought it was important to talk about this at Seattle Design Fest, and why we decided to go with the active printed ephemera over just digital communications. I mean, we had Instagram, we had Stay Curious Sundays series where we interviewed artists and shared their work digitally, and we're really trying to create as many accessible ways to interact with the media that we produce and uplift artists. But the active printing these zines and artist prints and even cassettes, and creating kind of like a lo-fi throwback version of art is important to us for a lot of reasons. One, it was the way that I connected with art when I was younger and had very little means. I'm also an older millennial, so I wasn't always with a computer. I learned a lot about art through encyclopedias, flyers from local art shows and concerts at church. They'd create pamphlets that had both picture, words, and a little bit about the community. And I kind of held on to that as my way of accessing my community, regardless of the technology that I had. And even though I think that a lot of people don't get that at first of why we decided to go with printed matter, that's really where it comes from, the heart. It's kind of like, this is a responsibility we're taking upon ourselves to use resources responsibly and sustainably sourced when at all possible, to put out these volumes that will leave a permanent mark wherever they end up, whether it's exchanging zines with each other, of donating them to like college libraries. Yeah, I think that Sam has a similar feeling, and it's why, beyond meeting each other and talking about collaborating as artists, why print also matters to Sam. I want you to talk a little bit about why you think it's important that we do
Absolutely.
printed matter over digital media.
Kind of even touching on the history of zines in the sense that it was a way for marginalized, underrepresented, or just kind of outsider communities to just own their own narrative and present their experience and how they experience it. That's how it felt even from the get-go, just for producing art, mostly from artists from the Inland Empire, for Curious Publishing. Because one thing I noticed too is a lot of our artists that we have, and much like myself and Rebecca, are working artists. People will go through phases of just being active, and then sometimes we'll go through dormant phases too. So to us, having a quarterly publication, or just to have those capture those moments when people were having their own artistic moment, is really powerful. Because you know print's pretty darn permanent compared to maybe the digital attention span, or how things come and go a lot where it comes to social media or just digital media. But you know someone years from now can unearth one of these zines or one of the magazines or one of our art books in a thrift store someday, and that is something that you never know if even if something like Instagram goes under, or even all that data is lost, the fact that it's in print makes it as permanent as almost as possible as it can be. And it's about capturing those moments. I remember one time, Rebecca, you were describing it to me. It's like a zine, or like even publishing. You almost see it like an indie film, like broken down into different stills, in the sense that it's just documenting life. And that is super important, because I feel a lot of the stuff here just goes unnoticed, or we try to sometimes censor ourselves or try to clean ourselves up a little bit, just to squeeze ourselves through those very narrow doors, just for that access. But for us, since we're able to, our whole mission statement is to keep that door open for people. People can just simply express what they want to and tell the story, their own story that they want to, and it empowers other people once they see that, oh, someone is just putting it out there, and that is huge. A little bit of an aside, but this is actually one of my favorite quirks about Curious that I noticed too, is that we'll have a lot of people's, and maybe I'm also talking about myself in this sense too, is that artists again grow. So it's pretty interesting that looking at some of our quarterly magazines or things like that, someone that maybe was a photographer or a visual artist at some point, couple magazine issues or a couple years down the line, they're still publishing us, but now they're dabbling with their poetry, which is something new and exciting for them.
No, I think that you put it really well. Curious Publishing over time has become a networking opportunity, which I know, I mean, even I like cringe when people used to tell me like, "Oh, you want your art to go out there, like you got to network," and I'd just be like, "Oh, networking! Like I'm an introvert, I'm an artist. Like, why are you doing this to me?" But when you refry it and you really own the way that you're sharing out all of your artwork, which in my case was zines and printmaking, it doesn't feel like this forced act anymore. You're really going out there and connecting with your tribe, and other tribe, they come in and learn about your practice as well. And let's not forget that for most people that are blue collar or low income like I was, and I'm skating that line still now as a working artist, is your priority isn't in making sure that you're being represented in the media or in the workforce. You're kind of consumed by hoping that you're going to get by, maybe sell some artwork soon, pay your bills, have a good time with your friends, thrive in your family. And really your hopes is that you end up in a community where you have advocates to make sure that whenever you are deciding to share your works, that you're being represented the way that you should. And accessibility hasn't always been easy, and still isn't easy for artists that are of color, indigenous artists, women artists, or even just artists with disabilities that can't access the same things that you and I can by just going on our computers and knowing how to apply for a grant, for instance. So that was one of the big reasons why we went beyond our quarterly publication that really started just for fun and to grow our voices and, you know, network with new artists. We went beyond that and decided to become a legit nonprofit so that we could start seeking those grant opportunities and funding sources so that we can pay all the artists that we collaborate with. And that is kind of where we are right now. I mean, we became a nonprofit in 2018, but then we had to build our credibility, put out these projects regularly, and then finally start applying for grants to create opportunities for artists in print. And that's what we've been doing. We created the BIPOC and Queer Publishing Fund. I want to say it was 2020.
Yeah, that's when we started gathering funds for it. But, you know, are you talking about the Cal Arts one?
Yeah. So, okay.
That one, that was a long journey. It started in 2020, and I think it went all the way till 2022 when we finally got accepted and eventually awarded practically at the end of
So
that
we
year.
created the publishing fund, BIPOC
Yeah.
and Queer Publishing Fund, and this was just a general fund for anyone in the public
Yeah.
to donate funds to. But of course, we were looking for those bigger funding sources, applying for grants, which are very competitive in Southern California because you have LA County. If you're doing California grants, you have all of California you're competing with, and we finally were awarded a large grant, which we were able to create 10 projects that were fully paid for artists to apply to, create their books, and produce their print projects with us. So not only did we start as this truly a community of artists that love print and love lo-fi and love networking, but now we're also able to offer these funds for artists to apply for and make basically their print projects come to full fruition and beyond what they had imagined to begin with. I want to talk about some of our favorite examples of print projects that we were able to fund recently. So I Have a Confession by Sherry Mae Jackson. This is a perfectly bound book that we co-designed with the artist. She is a writer and a photographer residing right here. And it was at the time in Fontana, California, which is right in the heart of the Inland Empire. Now she's in Pasadena, but at the time, her practice was reflecting on the open mic nights that she'd go to, archiving photos of the place where she got her film developed at, interviewing different artists, and expressing herself in terms of what it means to be an artist living right here in the Inland Empire. So Sherry reached out to us with a basic prompt, right? When you're an artist, you have this vision, this high vision typically, and you don't know exactly how you're going to get there, but you can see it. So the way that Curious Publishing has made this an accessible way for artists is that we provide an open call and you give us a simple prompt. So it's like, for instance, Sherry's prompt was, I have a collection of Inland Empire photography. Here's some examples of my poetry, some examples of my film photography, my website or Instagram. And it starts really with us reaching out to that artist. In this case, it was Sherry. And starting that conversation, you know, why is it important for you to have a print project? Do you envision how it's going to look in its final form, or do you need help getting there? So Curious Publishing is that bridge. We meet with the artist, we show them some examples of our print capabilities, you know, depending on what studios we're working with at the time. We print in-house, we outsource, and we make sure that they have an idea of a budget, you know, depending on grant funds or their personal funds. And we create the skeleton for an artist to build up their project from the ground up. We have their concept up high, and then we kind of go in and do that stuff that isn't that fun. So Curious Publishing puts out a lot of really fun projects, but Sam knows there's a ton that goes into planning. Do you have any memories of that?
Yeah, no, it's pretty interesting. As I mentioned, again, I might go on a little bit here, but I help run our brick and mortar store, which is in downtown Claremont, and first of all, the opportunity that affords us, just having people just seeing independent publishing, let alone our own, is just wonderful. I get to tell them about this whole world, for the most part, that they're missing out of. Or sometimes if people have an idea of what a zine is, or maybe even they've even heard of us, they ask like, well, how does it work? How do I get it published? So what happens, I find, is it's really interesting the kind of artists that we'll have and get to us. Some people have already a design in mind, and it's just a matter of them just wanting us to just distribute it because they love our network, they love what we do. And then some people are really in the dark. And, as far as formatting goes, Rebecca does all of her work on InDesign. In fact, one of my zines that I made, I formatted it on Google Docs, which to me, I was like, okay, it has like this font, it has like this font color, it's like this typeface is italicized here, and she's like, great, I have to start from the ground up when I do it in InDesign. I'm like, wait, what do you mean? I already did it for you. It's like, no, they're not compatible. So even just that project in particular, which that one was pretty much only text, I have had the privilege of seeing how much work it goes into laying stuff out. So when it's gone to things like us doing our first jacket cover or dust jacket, and seeing just how all those things need to get taken into consideration, it's just fascinating to see. Like, um, every single pixel is something that must be accounted for. So yeah, no, it's and then people like when they see the results, they're like they want to work with us because it's what we do and what Rebecca does is just simply fantastic. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. We've had a couple of artists where they gosh, I feel like they didn't even have like the name of their book yet, but they had their art, they knew which book collection they wanted to show. We almost kind of helped them in their formulation, or just like kind of like them honing in on a concept and like, oh, what's the overarching theme of this? And it's pretty interesting to see how kind of guiding and kind of growing with the artist in the creative process, even though ours is mostly just on the logistical side, or just helping them realize stuff to their vision. Even then do it's like, yeah, it's interesting. It's like writing a song, and then when you go to the studio, it's like, oh wait, like all of a sudden now that you're seeing it from this certain way, now there's all these new tools and now these new formats that weren't previously conceived. That it's like the scope opens, widens, and it's yeah, it's pretty great to see the final product.
Yeah, it really truly takes a village of people in different roles. I mean, you have the artist who is making this beautiful vision of their work, but you need like your copy editors, people that know how to use software like the Adobe Suite or what have you, depending on what the project is. And that's something I'm really proud that we've been able to start sharing with artists as part of our budgeting is, you know, buying subscriptions for new artists to the Adobe Cloud and giving demonstrations, like, oh, you want to lay out a zine, but you're not really sure how to. You can go the old school way, use a photocopier, collage something and, mass produce it at FedEx and Kinko's. And I think that that's a wonderful way to do it. But just with growing popularity in zines and art book fests, and people are starting to, well, at least I'm seeing the trend that a lot of artists want to elevate their work to another level, and they want to have a little more control over the final look of their printed project. And that's where these tools come in handy. And I've taken it upon myself to kind of become that expert person in leading people through the process. So we're really taking something, from the classic art world, which is 2D design. We're taking a little bit from journalism and, creative writing. We're taking their vision and story and then meshing all that together in a book layout, which, may not sound that exciting, but once that those pages are printing off, the press, and you get to assemble the book pages together and see what that final result is, the book itself becomes its own living object beyond what the original artist's practice is, in my opinion. So that's been the real beauty of connecting with artists and putting these projects together. What I hope that people can take away from this is that they see the value and ease at which it is to create a printed project and incorporate that into their art practice, but also see the lasting impact it can have on your community by taking it upon yourself to archive your own practice, and how that's an important part of you know, the cultural context of your own community, and how you can use zines and printmaking as a tool to share that footprint or that snapshot of your community at this time right now. And you know, zines are the most raw form of news, of queer identity, of a woman's identity, of a Black artist's identity right now, when that artist is physically writing down their own thoughts or taking photos or writing their prose and compiling that through their own vision. That's the most honest and raw version of life through their eyes, you know, in an anthropological sense, even, that you're going to have. And I think that it's so important that libraries are taking it upon themselves to create zine libraries to really take a snapshot of time of what's happening right now. And I think it'll always be really important that we have some version of a zine going forward, so that we artists and community members can take it upon ourselves to tell our own stories that are unfiltered and unbiased or uninfiltrated by outsider opinion, spin, what have you. And we really want to be that hub in our region and beyond now, or, you know, on the West Coast, for people to collaborate with us and, you know, even just bounce a raw idea off of us to see if there's something that we can do to either provide a resource, a collaborator, or see a full printed project to its full fruition through Curious. So yeah, that's our mission, and we're sticking to it.
Yeah.
If people wanted to collaborate with Curious Publishing, you go to curiouspublishing.org. We have a submissions tab year round. There are open calls for our quarterly Curious magazine. We have a biannual issue called Abeam, which is all about culture. And we have open calls for independent proposals as well, which provide funding to individual artists who want to see their work either in a book or in a printed project.
And that's the beauty of our rotating themes that we do, especially for Curious Magazine, because, you know, the truth is, since we're a nonprofit and we work full-time jobs, it's like, at some point, it's like we can only take on so many individual artist books per year, which is why working on grants is just simply beautiful, that it just frees up so much of the headache of just sourcing the funding in order to make these projects happen. But when people are like, how do we get involved? Please, like, seriously, submit to our quarterly magazine. It's so easy. Follow the prompt. And I love explaining to people the range that we've offered in the past. We started with Millennial Pink, and the next issue we did, we 180 to Revenge. In 2020, we did a bunch of stuff that was more identity focused, starting with our Latinx issue, then going to the queer, the women's issue, and rounding it off with a BIPOC issue. And then we've also done ones that were a little bit more medium focused, like we did one called Archive, which was all on film photography. Then we also did another, one of my personal favorites, lowbrow / pop surrealism, so a lot of pop art. And yeah, and then of course we've done ones that are pretty abstract, like the Revenge one, or Psychedelia was another popular one too. So it's, and right now we're rounding out a year of Empathy, and we have Empathy and Community coming out as far as the last in that series. So really, we try to just have these prompts that almost anyone can connect to in some way. And you know, if you as an artist are like feeling the urge to submit, but you're kind of scratching your head or not exactly sure how to respond to the prompt, you know, just kind of like our name, not to be a little cheesy, but, you know, just dig a little deeper and explore that. The first time I published music for that very first issue, I think I worked on something for 3 weeks and it was going nowhere, and then one day it just all came to me. So it's yeah, you got to do the work, but it's so rewarding. And then to see it in print, it's, yeah, it's, you'll get goosebumps, especially if there's no first feeling like that too. So it's important, and especially as coming from where we are, it's just being able to speak your truth and own it is a huge thing. Because as I've explained to people when we've tabled in Seattle, or when we tabled the other week in San Francisco, where we are in Southern California, as Rebecca explained, it's very working class, a lot of industry, a lot of suburban sprawl, a lot of Amazon warehouses. There is funding for the arts, but there's honestly a lot of nepotism And at the same time, there's just a lot of the same old faces you'll just kind of see. And in nowhere except for independent publishing or smaller communities or things like that we do through Curious Publishing, where you can see things that are, you know, unapologetically queer, or things that really focus on mental illness, things that are blatantly critical of capitalism, or anything where, you know, it's a little bit too much on the counterculture. So I feel that we highlight something that people either just feel isn't a voice being highlighted at all, or one that they haven't quite gotten the grasp of it themselves yet. So in the coming on 5 years that we've been doing this, one of my favorite things is just seeing how many people we've inspired to create and just be brave and be themselves.
It's the art of publishing, you know. You start with a concept and then you continue to add pages and volumes, and I think that's just the beauty of zine making and print making, is that you can always pick up another page and share another story. So I think that this is one of the strongest ways to continue storytelling in the art world, is through printed matter. And you know, we hope that that's something that has resonated with you all. So thank you.
Thank you.
What, 20 seconds? And we're back. That video, right? Pretty good. Pretty cool to see how they're bringing communities together from all different backgrounds. Very inclusive, and all from just a tangible and physical piece of artwork, you know? People handcrafting, coming together just through that. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing that you could even use in your own design process and experiment with. And I'm hoping it was a nice teaching moment for everybody. So I think at this point we're ready to talk about tomorrow. We have another in-person event on Tuesday. It is at the Gates Foundation from 5:30 to 7:30. And we'll also be live streaming from there. We'll have 3 different videos to show you. So please tune in and join us there. Oh, and one more thing. We do have to let you know that Pratt has an open house on, was it September 15th?
September 9th.
September 9th, thank you. From 5 to 7, I believe. Check out their website for the details and join them as well. So we hope you enjoyed our first day of Virtual Mainstage, and join us tomorrow for some more exploring your curiosity.
Thank you.